Except for those with a very keen eye, this scene rolling past could have been in any one of a dozen countries. There was nothing about it that said China in capital letters. How different it looked than I had expected. I'd thought the countryside would be rolling and green, layers of rice paddies carved from the sides of hills. And here it was, flat and gray, placid, undramatic. As the days went by and I saw more and more, I realized how little I knew, how little anyone could know from a view of the surface. He'll be taken to see the summer palace and the altar of heaven. He'll see pagodas and carvings of pagodas. He'll see the Great Wall and wall hangings of the Great Wall woven in the rug factory. He'll go to the Ming tombs and be taken for a ride on the river in Shanghai. He'll spend a day at the Forbidden City marveling at its works of art and the workmen refurbishing its works of art. He'll see dragons in bas-relief in many places and wonder about this symbol. And lion-type animals too, and what they mean. In every town, he'll be taken to parks and find them bursting with people. In the country, he'll see the tea pickers. In the city, the ivory carvers and the rug makers. He'll see all this and find it interesting. He'll get answers to questions about salary and production. But the most important question of all will not be answered unless he understands the philosophy that goes to make the Chinese character. Thomas Merton said, the idea of Tao is central to Chinese thinking. And to know the Chinese, one must at least understand the basics of Taoism. John Blofeld is an Englishman, but from his early youth he was obsessed with a desire to go to China. Finally, at 20, he ran away from school at Cambridge University and went to live in China. During 40 years in Asia, Blofeld has often lived in monasteries and made personal contact with Taoist masters. He's a world-renowned scholar, well known for his many books which interpret the ancient traditions of the Far East for Western readers.
I was just about to consult the I Ching, the Book of Change, a work written some 3,000 years ago by Chinese sages who sought to analyze the modes of change by which the universe progresses. The notion of unity at the heart of perpetual changes that tend always towards the good of the whole is central to Taoism. Taoism comes from Tao, spelt T-A-O in English. It's a Chinese word which literally means the way, but in fact it signifies something so mysterious, so utterly sublime, that it is better called the nameless. The Tao has two aspects. Seen one way, it is infinite, indivisible, pure void, a wholeness. Seen the other way, it is everything that exists, all the beings and objects in the universe, the very stuff of the universe. It is not God, because it is not thought of as a person. Rather, it is a mode of being, a state of being. Or better still, we could say the Tao is being itself. To be a Taoist is to accord with the flow of change, tranquilly, recognizing that without downs there could be no ups. Without death there could be no life. These Taoist principles are deeply imbued in the character, the arts and architecture of the Chinese people. So much so that communism or no communism, I feel that the effects of Taoist thought will remain for a very long time to come. This little book, called the Tao Te Ching, contains the principles of Taoism written in a very beautiful and poetic form. It was written 2.5 millennia ago by the great Taoist sage Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu is often depicted astride an ox. For many years a librarian at the court of a minor ruler, he grew tired of worldly ways and rode off on his ox to the wilderness. Before leaving, he wrote the Tao Te Ching, epitomizing his philosophy in just 5,000 Chinese characters. It has inspired countless Chinese throughout the ages to leave the cities and live as recluses in small communities inhabiting mountain hermitages surrounded by rocks and trees with the sound of running water forever in their ears. This is a yin-yang symbol. Lao Tzu and his followers based their philosophy firmly on the doctrine it represents. The Tao operates through the interaction of the polar forces yin and yang. Yin, dark in color, represents receptivity, passivity, female, etc. Yang, light in color, represents creativity, dynamism, male, etc. As these cannot act in isolation, a seed of yang is shown in yin and vice versa. These are not opposites, but complementary aspects of the Tao. In an ultimate sense, they are one with each other. Their interplay brings forth all the shifting phenomena which constitute our universe. According to Lao Tzu, the way of the good man is like that of water, which benefits all things without contention. He also said of it, the weakest thing in heaven and earth, it overcomes the strongest. Coming from nowhere in particular, it enters where there is no crack. This fern, floating with the current, symbolizes the Taoist way of dealing with life's problems by floating tranquilly along with the tide of circumstance. Like water, a Taoist deals with obstacles by circumventing them when possible. But just as water erodes the hardest rock if no way round exists, so does he silently persist in following the course set for him by nature. The patterns formed by water resemble the complicated intermingling of yin and yang. Neither is good or bad, for both are essential to existence and to the workings of the universe. Those who understand Taoism do not think in terms of good and bad, joy and grief, but of wholeness. Tranquilly they accept all that comes, recognizing sunshine and rain, life and death as complementary aspects of the Tao, which works always for the good of the whole. Boats move gracefully with the current. Going against the current involves great effort, so Taoists believe in moving effortlessly along, harmonizing one's desires with the current of events. There may be times when we are obliged to pit ourselves against the flow. When this happens, the Taoist way is to be like a boat, which makes for the shallows where less strength and effort are called for. Fighting the flow is deemed sheer folly. Taoists see rain as beautiful and welcome it like sunshine as necessary to life. Pure in itself, water reflects all things, bright and dull, without distinction. It reflects people, virtuous or otherwise, impartially. From this we learn to avoid making judgments like good and bad, beautiful and ugly, and willingly accept all that comes along as part of life's flow. The Forbidden City in the heart of Peking is the former residence of the Son of Heaven, as the emperor was called. Its splendid halls, pavilions, and temples, standing on gleaming marble terraces, face south, as does the emperor's throne, in accordance with the ancient science of feng shui, Taoist geomancy. Within the walls are vast spaces symbolizing the importance attached by Taoists to voidness. As Lao Tzu said, clay is molded to make vessels. Doors and windows are built into a house. Substance and void are equally essential to their usefulness. Chinese architects fully recognize that void and substance complement each other. Within the Forbidden City are splendid artifacts. Cranes symbolize long life. Tortoises have been anciently connected with divination. And the lion-like mythical shizi are symbols of power. The Temple of Heaven stands on a triple marble terrace. The three-stage roof accords with Taoist cosmological principles, as does almost every detail of the temple's intricate architecture and decoration. Twice a year, the emperor came here to perform rites intended to promote the harmony of heaven, earth, and man. Pagodas are an adaptation of the bottle-shaped Buddhist stupas of India and have become a typical feature of the Chinese landscape. According to the Taoist science of feng shui, geomancy, a properly sited pagoda can remedy the absence of a high point in a land configuration that is otherwise auspicious for the inflow of heavenly forces. Chinese palaces and temples are built round courtyards containing trees and flowering shrubs. There may also be works of either bronze or stone, such as sundials, incense burners, and urns. Trees, artifacts, and buildings complement one another. Splendid yellow-tiled roofs are a delectable feature of Chinese architecture. The supporting wooden pillars are lacquered red. The beams and ceiling panels are covered with intricate, multicolored miniatures of flowers, birds and beasts, and landscapes born of a Taoistic love of nature. Dragons are symbols of the beneficent forces wherewith heaven, pure yang, penetrates earth, pure yin. Unlike the dragons of Western mythology, they are always beneficent and auspicious. Dragons like these with 5 claws instead of 4 symbolize the emperor's awesome yet beneficent mystical power on which the empire's welfare was believed to depend. Taoist temples are mostly to be found amidst scenes of natural beauty where rural peace favors the contemplative life. In Taoist landscapes, human figures are usually dwarfed by their natural surroundings. This is not because man is deemed insignificant, but because his significance lies in his being an embodiment of the Tao, and this is a quality he shares with the entire realm of nature. In most paintings of this sort, the scale of man to hill is like that of ant to man. The artists never seek to copy nature. Having gazed long upon clouds, mountains, streams, rocks and foliage, they retire to create within their minds landscapes that are distillations of nature's loveliness. The long robes worn by these figures are an ancient form of dress, still favored by Taoist recluses. China's hills and streams, rocks and trees, temples and courtyards are all closely associated with Taoist thought. I think that a people reared in such an environment can never be indifferent to such a legacy of beauty. The communists, of course, have wrought great changes, but deeply imbued in the Chinese nature are a feeling of closeness to nature, a love of beauty, a willingness to make the best of things, and a fondness for laughter and good humor. These things, I feel sure, will remain. It is usual in China for people of all ages to take exercise in the early morning when the qi, or cosmic breath, is at its purest. Nowadays, some Chinese go in for Western forms of physical exercise that are faster and more strenuous than the traditional exercise, Tai Chi. However, lots of people still prefer to stick to this Taoist form. Tai Chi, which resembles shadow boxing, is designed to benefit every part of the body without strain. The movements are slow and rhythmic, free from tension, so it is suitable for very old people as well as youngsters. Western physical exercises seem jerky by comparison. Tai Chi is based on the Taoist principle Wu Wei, meaning no activity that lacks the spontaneity of plants bending towards the sunlight. Following this principle leads us away from activities involving cunning, self-aggrandizement, and inordinate greed for profit. The principle applies to mental and physical activities with equal force. To the Chinese eye, many crags and rocks resemble some sort of living creature, so they give them fanciful names such as Lion Cub Hill or Fighting Tigers. These hills, however, are called the Seven-Star Crags. According to Taoist belief, all things manifest the living Tao and thus possess a kind of life. The arches of a bridge and their reflections in the water are seen by Taoists as a lovely symbol of the perfect harmony of yin and yang. Nowadays, Western people are becoming interested in Taoism. I think it's largely because they've been studying various offshoots of Taoist philosophy. These include such things as acupuncture, calligraphy, I Ching divination, Tai Chi, calisthenics, and many others. Moreover, at the present time, trends in physics seem to be tending more and more towards what can most certainly be called Taoist attitude to or concept of the universe. So I think we may hope to see more and more Westerners learning this lovely way of becoming close kin to the environment. It leads to contentment, to harmlessness, and to unshakable tranquility. Remember, there are no ups without downs. Dying is just a part of life. What may seem hurtful to the individual always tends to the good of the cosmos as a whole. This is the working of the Tao.